This is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was written on a different story. This time I'm mistaken.
This looks tremendously fast. Indeed it is, at 12.8.
Where did that come from? Juan Montoya has done it again, hasn't he?
It's nearly half-time in F1 2002. Round 8 equals race day in Montreal. Juan Pablo Montoya, the pole sitter for the Canadian Grand Prix. Hello there, good afternoon. The temperature 23 degrees. The Gilles Villeneuve circuit is absolutely heaving. We've always had a very dramatic race here. The track is hard on brakes. It's even tougher on the drivers, and over the years we've come to expect the unexpected. Tony Jardine and Mark Blundell are with me. Welcome, gents. Let's bring everybody right up to date with what happened in qualifying. Mark, a bit of rain at the end, but before that, record-breaking from Montoya.
Well, Pablo Montoya, I mean, unbelievable lap. Really stamped his authority on the session, but a 12-minute .8. The guy's now putting himself in this car and he's doing it time and time again. You can see he's very controlled, very aggressive, and really making the most of that last chicane there, just clipping those curbs and getting that extra little bit of speed. But he's stamping his authority time and time again now.
It's around 3 seconds quicker than last year's pole. Is that just down to the alterations in the track here?
Well, they've shortened the circuit. It's about 60 metres smaller than what it was last year. A little bit extra tarmac grip at the hairpin, but I think the cars have just gone that leap forward again. Definitely faster.
We'll take a look around the circuit with you a little bit later on. But Tony, what a contrasting day for the Jordans. They say they love coming to this place. One driver did okay, and the other one had, I'd have to describe it as a very hot lap.
Poor old Takuma Sato in the wars yet again, and he had a major blow-up, unfortunately, with his engine, and it ignited, and it did get quite hot, and he got out of there quite quickly, and then went through the jungle at the side of the track, got back to the pits to get into the spare car, but by then the rain had started, so he ended up further down the grid. A shame for Takuma. And then Fisichella himself, I mean, he is superb around here. 4 podiums around here, he's excellent. And he took quite a risk. He straight-lined some of the bends and went right across the curbs, put it in this superb time, like 6th place on the grid. And he said he's looking to get on the podium today. You
were talking yesterday to Jacques Villeneuve, carrying massive support, and at least he's put the BAR in the top 10 today.
It was great support. When he went into that 8th place, you could hear the cheers through the press office and way above the engines and so on. I actually said to him, pointing down here to the champions wall, that final bend, I said, well, you remember you went off into there in 97? He said, yeah, I've done that twice. He's very proud of it. The fact that he does tend to overdrive in front of his home crowd. He does feel this enormous sense of pride, but unfortunately then the engine let go just before he was going out for his 4th run, but he still maintained a 9th position, stayed in the top 10, which is a great result for BAR with this revised car, and he's very happy with it indeed.
A little way from Jacques Villeneuve. He starts it in 9th place today. Now, Mark, there's a bit of rain forecast, no sign of it at the moment. When it came in qualifying, it just shows how tricky this place is when it's slippery.
Oh yeah, I mean, the obvious point being that it's been very dry. The sun's been out on the track. When you get a little drizzle, the track gets very greasy. It's very tough for everybody, but it just amazes me, all these millions of pounds that goes into the situation of F1. They've got weather stations. All the teams have got weather gurus, and they can't get it right.
And Barrichello and Coulthard had their problems towards the end of the session.
Yeah, but you know, it's the same for all those guys there. They're just pushing towards the end of the session, trying to get that ultimate lap in, and the track's greasy. They arrive at the corner, they've got to push through their gym, and they just don't know what grip level's underneath them. And you know, they all make mistakes. Barrichello actually got away with it very lightly. It could have been a much bigger accident. Problem still being coming up for the chicane there. DC again struggling the last chicane or the last lap, just trying to put a lap together to try and push himself up the grid. And again, he got away with it very lightly. It could have been a much bigger accident, but it's always a deal for the guys in qualifying.
That was a bit of a desperate gamble from David Coulthard to try and push himself up the grid. Tony, tell us how it pans out.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya, this is his second pole position on the trot. He's looking to make amends for Monte Carlo. And Michael Schumacher alongside him looking for his 5th Canadian win. Barrichello had problems in the morning. He crashed. He lost time. Ralf Schumacher had to take the spare car and it was set up for Montoya. Raikkonen says, are McLaren not suited to this track? Fisichella, 4 podiums, as we said, superb 6th position. 7th, Heidfeld. Horrible session, said David Coulthard, in 8th. And then Jacques Villeneuve, good position there for him, top 10. Jarno Trulli had to take the spare car after smiting the wall there in his race car. Panis revelling in the revised VAR, and alongside him Massa, who wants to overtake as many cars as possible. Button in 13th, couldn't slipstream, he said. And alongside him, Irvine, Sartor there in 15th. Della Rosa, happy with the updated Cosworth engine they used. Bernaldi 17th. Salo alongside him in 18th position. 19th, Frentzen, not his day at all, he said, lost his rhythm. McNeish alongside him. Webber and Young with a gearbox problem. So all pretty glum at the back of the grid. But towards the front of the field, well, the Red Devils were practicing their party tricks.
I'm happy. I think it went in a good way. So there is a track that he overtakes. So hopefully we have the pace that we had on the race for last race.
Last year, Michael, it was you against Ralph. Now, is it you against Juan Pablo?
It looks like at the moment, yep.
And obviously, you've done a lot of work to be more competitive than you were here last year.
We done, and we look to be more competitive in terms of consistency. Let's see how much that is true.
I've been 3 times on pole and the race hasn't been that good. Hopefully this time things are a bit different.
Really, second would have been possible, but one was simply had a very good day and it was simply slightly stronger.
I did well in the past. It's a good circuit for me, and everything is possible. So I hope to score some points, but obviously my target is get on the podium.
We're out of position, definitely. It should be 3rd row, but it was a messy session.
Well, despite that messy session, David Coulthard, there he is, and McLaren come to Montreal with a warm glow of satisfaction after his inspired drive in Monte Carlo. The team accept it could be an isolated victory, but they deserve great credit for restoring the feel-good factor to F1.
Any magical memories of his great Monaco win were banished from David Coulthard's mind yesterday. A reality check in Montreal qualifying, care of a graceful spin on a wet track. He'll start today's race from the 4th row, but at least he's prepared for any conditions.
Well, I kept going because I wanted to get some more experience. I want to know where I can lean on the car. Clearly, not the way I took the last chicane wasn't the way to do it, but we should have done a better job really in terms of making the call when to go out.
So how can the same driver in the same car dominate a race one weekend, only to struggle a fortnight later?
Well, to those who don't follow the sport closely, then they may be a bit confused as to where that victory came from, but it's quite simply that certain tracks require more strength from certain areas, and our car has very good downforce. Around Monaco, you need the downforce. The more downforce you can generate, then the faster you can get around those tight corners. Something like Montreal, it doesn't have a lot of corners and it has a lot of straights, so we reduce the downforce in the car, which means you have higher top speeds. And we're not quite as efficient in that area, so we lack a little performance.
This was the moment that assured McLaren their Monaco win. Michael Schumacher was closing in after his pit stop, so DC stopped earlier than he'd planned. It worked. He kept track position over the Ferrari. David could then control the pace without taking risks.
There's always an element of restraint when you're driving Monaco because you have to. A barrier isn't forgiving. With a curb and a piece of grass, you can run over or run onto and know that's the limit. So it's a different form of attack. But nonetheless, it was relentless, the pace and the cars around me and everything worked really well. And obviously we reacted to the Ferrari pit stop and we had much more fuel on board. So we don't know at what point they could have run to, but we were pretty confident that even if they'd pushed it all the way, we could still come out in front.
Adrian, what would you say your overriding feeling was after Monaco?
I guess to some extent relief that we'd finally won a race this year. It was starting to look a serious possibility it might go through the whole season without a win, which would have been fairly depressing, I guess. I think for the team as a whole, they've worked very hard and it was good to see the car perform well, but I think it gives people a sense of belief that the other teams aren't invincible, that we can still go out and do it.
I believe in my ability to race, and that's what we're out there to do, and that's what I was able to do in Monaco, and to race and to defend and to use my experience to know where the point is that you're under pressure, but you have to say, well, that's the limit, that's the limit for me, that's the limit for the car. I'm a consistent winner, but I just need the opportunity with the package to have a championship, a car that's capable of winning the championship, and for me to deliver on a consistent level, which is what I've always said. Unfortunately, this year we don't have that car.
Well, David Coulthard has never won or even been on the podium here in Canada. The victory in Monte Carlo put him fourth in the Drivers' Championship, in touch with Ralph Schumacher and Montoya, but way off the leader. Michael Schumacher's the only driver to have finished every race this season. And when you factor in Barrichello's dozen, you can see why Ferrari lead the constructors. Williams, well, they need a tickle today. There's only one team without a point, British American Racing, an expensive zero that, and it hurts. Louise Goodman reporting.
British American Racing arrived on the Formula One scene in 1999 with a blaze of publicity and a rash promise of wins in their debut year. How wrong they were. They failed to score a single point. Things improved in year two, and last season brought 2 podiums for Villeneuve, but it still wasn't enough to satisfy the paymasters. Craig Pollock, the man whose dream of creating the team was rapidly turning into a nightmare, was axed in a boardroom coup. His replacement, David Richards, set about making the changes that he felt were necessary to turn things round.
I think it was more about the structure and the way the company was put together than about the right people. We've got a great team of people, and the reality is we haven't changed a lot of people. Sure, we slimmed it down a little bit, because when we actually analysed the numbers of people we need, we were a bit overstaffed. But apart from that, no, I think we had a really enormous wealth of talent inside the organisation. They're just not pointed in the right direction.
You've been with this team half the season now, but you still haven't got any points.
Nope.
Is that putting you under pressure?
No, it's just a fact of life and into circumstances. You can liken it almost to a farmer. You know, you sow your seeds this year for next year's crop. So we're actually working with a car that was designed best part of a year ago, and it's what we've got to work with, I'm afraid.
So what was wrong with the 2002 design? When technical director Jeff Willis joined from Williams, he was surprised at what he found.
I suppose when I started, I thought we would have to look at some of the aerodynamic improvements and things, and the more I got into it, I realised it was really everywhere. The sort of primary structural design was not very good. Transmissions, gearboxes, suspension, electronics, control, aerodynamics, you name it, virtually everything really has to be looked at.
I think it's very clear that you know, we're just ahead of the Minardi and the Jaguars. That's it. Everybody else is more competitive than us.
So what's missing?
Right now, a good car and a good engine.
This is the bad news for us, but what is the plan? I mean, we need to cry, or we need to continue to push and to work hard and to finish the race and mark some point. This is I feel is the way I need to continue to pushing and to make some result and to put some point.
This weekend could mark a turning point, though. The Canadian Grand Prix sees the debut of a heavily revised BAR.
Well, several changes. The most obvious is the external aerodynamic package, which has changed quite a lot. That's new side pods and new diffuser under tray, and we've got some new aerodynamic devices at the front. Inside, we have some changes in the gearbox area, clutch actuation, hydraulics, a little bit of tidying, a little bit of reliability redesign in there.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating, of course, but the early signs are good, and Jacques Villeneuve seems quietly optimistic.
This is the kind of step that you normally get during a season. We didn't get them in the past somehow, and we ended up the season always slower than we started the season. And this year it seems like we've kept up and we've actually gotten closer to the front a little bit. So we seem to have made a bigger step than the opposition, which is good.
Plain speaking, Jacques Villeneuve always carries the hopes of his nation here. More often than not, Montreal's finest has failed to deliver. Let's take a closer look now at the circuit named after his dad, Gilles. They have made a few changes, as we've said, since our last visit. Here's Mark and Martin Brundle.
The Gilles Villeneuve circuit here in Montreal, just under 4.4 kilometres, 3 major changes for this year. The first being right here at pit exit, Mark.
Well, this was the old pit lane exit. You can see here now painted red, divided between the track and the pit lane itself. Major problem for the guys, 140 miles an hour on the exit. Used to see that right-hand mirror there, but you could never see a car. Remember a couple of years back, Schumacher, Frentzen, into the heart of the corner. Collision always causes a problem.
Absolutely, but I think they may have fixed that problem with this new layout, but created yet another by feeding the cars directly into the heart of turn 2. Let's take a look. So cars on the racetrack slowing down into 1, just 55 miles an hour. Cars coming out of the pit lane, Mark, 150, and then they blend into the same point here, look.
I tell you what, with this blend line and the way that they have to come out on the outside of this corner, I reckon those guys are going to be like a gear up.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not allowed to cross the line, but even so, I still think they're going to have to be really sensible how they join the racetrack. Anyway, it's a good run out, isn't it? It's a short straight down to turn 3. This used to be very challenging, I found, trying to pick your point, where you're going to brake and turn in.
And it's a little bit blind, isn't it? Just used to take that speed off, a little bit bumpy on the entrance, but trying to pick that apex is critical.
Really satisfying though, isn't it? I mean, the track falls away a little bit. You take a touch of curb on the way in and try to keep full throttle, 3rd, 4th gear on the exit, maybe 100 miles an hour. Absolutely nowhere to go, look, on the right-hand side. But really satisfying. But straight then into turn 5, which is the blind right-hander.
Yeah, this is tricky in the wet though. I mean, 4th gear, 5th gear acceleration, and we've seen in earlier years, what was that, Panis who had that big accident?
Yeah, absolutely, coming through here and broke both his legs.
But this is one of these tracks like we've spoke about before in our old driving days, when you just set the thing up with a little bit of understeer, just got that front end pushing off the exit the corner. As the corner opens up, you blend off and carry the speed.
Tell us about this under the bridge then. Pretty tricky, wasn't it?
This was a little bit tricky. One, because you've got this little tint of darkness as you come underneath. You've got the reference points to try and pick out. And always bumpy coming into this area, trying to keep that back end in check. Try and clip that curb. A little bit violent with those lumps there. And again, one of those corners on the secondary part of the chicane here. Corner opens up, blend off with the understeer up against the concrete wall and carry down to the hairpin.
But this year it's slightly different, isn't it? They've moved it forward, and I think it's worth us getting out here and actually taking a look at the difference this is going to make in this year's Grand Prix. Let's do that. So what's new here then, Mark?
Well, Martin, they've effectively shortened the track. They've moved the hairpin a bit closer, but I'm not sure whether this is right.
No, I tend to agree with you. We've got a mass of tarmac here and a longer runoff area, but arriving at 190 miles an hour, have a brake failure or suspension failure, you're still going to hit that tyre barrier down there with a massive whack. I think they missed a trick. I think they should have turned it right down there by the casino sign and really done the job. But still great visibility for the massive grandstand seats in the area. Let's take a look at the rest of the track. This is a deceiving chicane, this last part of the racetrack, because the pit entry carries on, so it's difficult to really pick a braking point. We've seen so many dramas here over the years. Villeneuve, Schumacher, buried in this wall here on the exit of the final chicane. But they've changed it for this year, haven't they? So let's get out and have a look at that. So what's new here then, Mark?
Well, I'll tell you what's new. This was where the original track was, the wall. Now they've moved it back. They've also put 2 sets of tyres, covered it with this hardcore rubber. But look, what do you think of this?
Well, 2 things I think about this, Mark. Firstly, of course, the point of impact is actually not much further away from the racetrack. And we've seen so many cars hit hard, not least Heidfeld last year. Secondly, this piece of curved wall here, I think, is right in the line of fire as they come through the exit of that last chicane. And the cars are going to be right out here on. There's enough grip, isn't there?
There's plenty of grip here. I think they're going to use this part of the racetrack. It's going to be maximum attack down that straight.
I still think there's going to be some tears, but for me, this is a wonderful racetrack. Not all drivers like it. What about for you?
I never did like it.
Okay.
What's wrong with it then?
I never got on at this track. I mean, in a Formula 1 car, I never had any results. It was one of my bogey tracks. But in sports cars, I was on the podium. Drivers have problems with circuits. We've seen it time and time again with drivers' careers.
Just talk to us about the dash to that first corner. Real concertina effect there, isn't there?
It is. It's 150 miles an hour into turn 1. The cars are all travelling in close proximity. There's always trouble there. You always get the smart guy trying to go around the outside, then to the inside for turn 2.
but we've seen trouble time and time again.
Well, we say Truly did it and then flipped Wirtz over, and now we've got Massa. We talked about it briefly from 12th place. He's saying, I want to pass as many cars as possible into turn 1. You don't need someone like him saying
Well, he might be looking to get past Michael Schumacher, and a little drama. He always tends to do this in warm-up, but Tony, he's done it in his spare car here, hasn't he?
Well, this is the teaser for the rest of the field. Just when they're looking for a chink in Ferrari's armour, he gives them a nice blow up in front, and everyone rubs their hands together. Oh, great, they're in trouble. And then they realise he's in the spare car. And what's more, he comes to the end of the pit lane, parks it conveniently, runs back, gets into his race car. Now, there's his spare one smoking away, goes out and goes even faster. And that's the sort of domination that Ferrari have, and Schumacher, so cool.
OK, Michael Schumacher then quickest in warm-up. You're hearing the cars behind us. Don't worry, you're missing no action. The Canadian Grand Prix starting in, just over 20 minutes' time. OK, competition time now. Remember last time out we asked you to name the team which Jenson Button first drove for in Formula 1. The answer is Williams. Our winners are Steve Cornish from Letchworth in Hertfordshire and Andrea Knowles. And she comes from one of Jenson's old stamping grounds, Bicester in Oxfordshire. Well done, you two. The organisers at Goodwood will be in touch with you very shortly. And now we have a fantastic Silverstone competition for you. It's donated by Toyota, and a chance to win 2 VIP tickets. It's a great prize for race day, and there are helicopter transfers and hotel accommodation thrown in as well. All you have to do is answer a very simple question. We want you to tell us who won last year's British Grand Prix. Was it A, Michael Schumacher, B, Mika Häkkinen, or C, David Coulthard? A, Michael Schumacher, B, Mika Häkkinen, C, David Coulthard. You can enter via the ITV F1 website or by calling 09065 899 199. 09065 899 199. The course costs 60 pence maximum. The lines close midnight, the 26th of June, and the very best of luck to you all. Okay, that is the car that's going to be on pole today, Montoya's Williams. Williams gave us a spot of F1 history here last year. Ralf Schumacher won the Grand Prix, beating Michael into second place and giving us 2 brothers on top of the podium for the first time.
Ferrari has been known for very good strategies and race tactics in general. To beat them in a tactic was perfect. I mean, we simply were a bit stronger in the race, and we made the use out of it.
Looking back on it, it was a very controlled drive, wasn't it? You had a few looks at him here and there, but didn't try anything rash and then just did it in the pit stops.
Well, it was the only chance, really. We weren't quick enough on the straights to get by him, and I didn't want to make anything stupid. I mean, Michael, I know as a driver, likes to force other drivers into mistakes, and that's what I didn't want to do at that time.
Would you say that is a bit like your driving style now? Do you think more about races, do you find?
No, I mean, it all has to make sense. Whenever I think there is a possibility, I will try hard. But whenever I think I have to wait, I do it. I mean, it's my 6th season. I made a lot of mistakes in Formula 1, and I learned from it. And I mean, it's all very spectacular if you overtake people with 4 locking wheels and all that stuff, which at the time pays out, certainly. And they all think you're a great driver, but sometimes it doesn't, and then you're an idiot.
You said to me a couple of races ago that the championship this year is looking difficult for Williams. Do you see the championship as a long-term goal where you are now?
Well, I saw it as a long-term goal when I joined in '99. Nevertheless, I'm here in my fourth season now, and it's really time now to plan for next year, or the latest the year after. That has to be our target. Certainly, this year would have been a bit early, but it all looked like it in the beginning of the season. But I mean, Ferrari is ahead, and it's just down to us to catch them.
And what do you think is your chance now for a repeat of last year's win?
It's always difficult to say. It's a very long race here. We have seen a lot of cars dropping out of this race, so just have a good start. Hopefully no crashes within the first few corners, and let's take it from there.
Just under 20 minutes to go to the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. Big building in the background is the casino here in Montreal. We're going to be back with Martin's grid walk. It's a bit of a lottery what happens on that. Last time in Monaco, Martin juggled his microphones. He chatted to the winner as well. What's in store today? Well, don't ask me or Martin. The Canadian Grand Prix is easily the country's biggest single sporting event. It's the start of summer when the race comes to Montreal. It's a sellout as well, over 100,000 here. One stop the norm. Remember Ralf Schumacher completing 51 laps last time? The latest news from Louise.
That's right, Jim. One stop traditionally the way to go, certainly amongst the front runners anyway. But I've got a suspicion we might see some two-stoppers here this afternoon. Ferrari certainly seem to be having a look at that option in the warm-up this morning. The great thing about this race, though, is that you never really know what's going to happen. The Canadian Grand Prix is traditionally unpredictable. We've seen the safety car out on track here 5 times in the last 6 years, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it out on the circuit again this afternoon. There's also some talk of rain as well. Let's just go grab a word with Eddie Jordan here. Eddie, if I could just interrupt you, I understand there's talk of rain this afternoon. What are your forecasters saying?
Well, we're optimistic. We want lots of rain, but I'm not sure it will happen. I mean, it's sunny at the moment and there's a lot of wind around, so not trying to be a weather forecaster, but my hopes are for rain, but I doubt if it's going to happen today.
Now, your man Fissy's way up there. He's always gone well here. Jordan have always gone well here too. Good race this afternoon on the cards?
It'll be nice. We've, you know, the last 2 races now we finished in the points. This will be nice again to get a 3rd race in a row. Giancarlo had his first ever podium with Jordan here in '97, so there's a good omen, good feeling about it, and he had a sensational qualifying yesterday. That was an unbelievable lap. So fingers crossed, let's hope it's a nice race, and it's good for us in Canada.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Giancarlo Fisichella starting 6th on the grid. Let's go to the sharp end now and join Martin.
Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the grid. Well, what do you want to know? First of all, I want to show you the short run that the drivers have down to that first corner, which is why we see so many incidents here, just about 250 metres as they take off, and that's why I think the back of the grid is travelling even faster when it gets there. Salut Gilles Villeneuve, of course, who this circuit is named after. Here's a man I want to have a quick word with, because this afternoon is going to be a casino, I think, between Ferrari and Williams. Mr. Steve Wynn, who owns half of Las Vegas. Mr. Wynn, who's going to win this race today, do you think?
I think the big engines, Ferrari and BMW, have an edge because of the long straightaways. But of course, again, drivers make the difference, and anything can happen in a Formula One race.
Are we going to see Formula One back in Vegas?
I sure hope so. There's nothing like it in the world. My pal Bob Baldwin and I and our wives, we come here, and we've been to Monte Carlo and we've been to Melbourne, and we think, just as the mayor said, it transforms the city. It brings a dash of, it brings a color, a pageantry, and an excitement that I don't think any other sport in the world can do. I think it's time that Americans got deeper into this.
Okay, it's really good to see you, and I love your hotel, by the way, at the Bellagio. Thanks for talking to us. That should get me a cheap honeymoon suite, shouldn't it? Next time we don't. Anyway, casino, as I say, between Ferrari and Williams. Williams, in my view, have the obviously have pole position, but I don't think they've quite got the car that's fast enough to beat Michael Schumacher. But will Schumacher be able to get ahead of him at any time? And I think that sprint down to the first corner is going to be everything. And I have to say, I watched every car practicing its starts this morning, and the Ferrari and Williams didn't seem to be among the best, but they did seem to be pretty even. So where I showed you that the track just tightens and turns down into one, we've seen Schumacher and Montoya get together so many times. We know none of them are prepared to give. And the best grandstand seat in the house will be with Rubens Barrichello. Have you got a quick word for us, Ruby? You've got a good on here. You've got a great seat to see that run down to the first corner.
I hope to be in the middle of their cows.
You're going to try and get between the pair of them?
Well, it would be a good idea, I think. But it's the first corner is different. We won't stop as much as we did last year, so we just got to watch a little bit.
Yeah, because it's 2 meters wider when you get down there, isn't it? So you think that's going to slow you up less and less drama this year?
It's going to be a gear up for sure. So you won't. I think the group will have less of a chance of having an accident. I hope so.
You're on softer tyres than Michael, I think. So will you stop less?
We see.
All right, man. Thanks, Rubens. Cheers. Let's see if we can find a Williams driver. Obviously, Rubens is very confident. I know Bridgestone are super confident. I'm going to come around this side of you, Andy, and have a quick word with Ralf Schumacher. Ralf, I don't think your grid position represents your true pace here, does it?
No, I had a bit of bad luck yesterday, but I mean, maybe second would have been possible. One had a very strong day yesterday, and he deserved a pole. I think race is going to be very tough and tight, and I think we see something good for the spectators today.
I agree, but I mean, you won this race last year, but it does seem the Ferrari have an incredible pace to me.
They are on an incredible pace, and I'm sure it's going to be difficult for us, but since they're on the sandwich, so we'll see what we can do. I mean, we try to make it possible.
Do you think you're going to go through that phase where your tyres fade away and then come back again? Are you expecting that pain today?
No, we don't have that problem anymore. That's gone. History.
Okay, thanks for talking to us. I really appreciate it. There was one more man I wanted to talk to if I could find him, which is Ross Brawn, and just understand if there's any kind of Ferrari strategy that we can learn today. In fact, I think he's just going into an interview. So, Ross, we've got 10 seconds left. So we've got 10 seconds. How many seconds have you got? Ross, can you win the race today?
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course, we always think we can win the race. Starts will be pretty important, but there is a bit of strategy we can do today, and it depends how well their tyres hold up.
How are you going to get Michael past Montoya?
Well, it's obviously easiest at the start, and then we don't have to do anything after that, but we'll play around with the pit stops if we get stuck and see what happens.
Okay, good luck. Thank you. Back to you in the studio. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Austrian TV getting the benefit of that interview as well. So there we are in Montreal. No sign of that rain. They are saying there's a 40% chance of rain during the race. Looking around, I can't say I believe the forecasters. We're almost ready to go here. Montoya leading the charge to the first corner, as we've been saying, very, very tight through there. Michael Schumacher trying to win the race for the 5th time. It really is a car breaker, this one. Watch out for Massa at the start. It catches out the very best this circuit. Canada really sharing the glory of Lennox Lewis's performance last night. Believe me, their Grand Prix, well, that's always a knockout.